Welcome to my channel. This is going to be a series of videos to try to explain the mindset of someone who has traveled down a road and luckily picked the right roads that will benefit him and his family. And hopefully that these videos will share some of the experiences that I had and possibly help you in the long run. It's interesting as you sit and ponder about how your direction of life has led you to the point that you are, or if you're just starting out and you're looking for the future, trying to decide whether or not the future is going to be bright or not. This channel is basically going to give you some insight to something that I've accumulated over the years, knowledge, responsibility, growing up in a military family. As you can see on the picture here, my father's the one on the left, and he's no longer with us. He's passed about 10 years ago. But he was military 24 years, Sergeant Major. So you look at the lifespan that we have, which is relatively short. It's about 80 years. You have to make a strong impact. If you're an alpha male, alpha female, and that impact has to impact other people. That's the way it goes. It'll impact your family. It'll impact your relatives, maybe not to a financial degree, unless you have a ton of money, like Musk or Bezos. But you kind of get the information I'm trying to pump out here. What you will find on this channel is that I may not be politically correct. I may also not give 100% of the information, because you can't research everything. It's very difficult unless you're trapped in a room with a computer. But what you will get on this channel is you will get reality. You're going to get my perspective, my opinions on things, whether or not it be correct or not. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. I'm not going to sell you a course. I'm not going to have you directed to a sponsor or any of that stuff. The only thing that I'm trying to share here is how an individual growing up became a millionaire. That's what I'm going to share with you. And if this helps you, give you direction in your life, then fantastic. All I'm doing is sharing stuff in my experiences. And I can tell you, as these videos get produced and I start uploading them, I will go through days just like anybody else. I will have a rant day. I will have a fantastic day. And sometimes I'm going to have some shit days. Like anybody else. Just like the stock market, everything goes up and everything comes down. But the scenario that I'm going to give you in this first video is where it all started. It all started with this man right here on the left. See that? And as time goes on, you start to gather a lot of traits from your parents, right? This happens to be his mother, and these are all his brothers and sisters. And out of all of these brothers and sisters, there's only one left. They're all passed. Okay? My mom's side, it was all Korean. And I don't know if my mom's side has a picture with all of them in it. I do not have that picture. But what I wanted to do today is I wanted to show a couple of items. When you grow up and you venture out in life and you're a kid, and like this kid right here, that was taken when I was 18 years old, right? I think some of the traits that you have, that you start growing up with, like, you don't think about the future when you're 18 years old. You do stupid shit, and you listen to anything that you can that has to do with what you're interested in at that time period. And as I look at this Z28 that I had, I was so proud of it. I bought it for $4,000, and I drove it from Jersey all the way to California. And then I see, this was the 80s, so you're wearing some questionable clothing. At that time, it was like a punk rock era was coming to its end, and rock was picking up. Brings back a lot of memories. Things I used to do, things I used to say. Very naive, very naive. Had no direction whatsoever. No direction. Only what you get from your parents, which is go to college, get a degree, go to work for a company, blah, blah, blah. I was never cut out for that. I was never cut out for working for a company. Even though I did it for a while, I knew that I had a bigger purpose. That could have been a different route right there, So as you get older, you start getting in your 20s. You get introduced to companies. You get introduced to working. You start getting to the point where you're really like, you got a little thought process going up there, right? And all of a sudden you get married. You find the woman of your dreams, and you get married. That comes with a whole mess of other problems, right? The days when you were basically doing whatever you want to do, working on your cars, stuff like that. These are my niece and nephew, my sister. Those days go by, they go by so fast. They go by so fast, when you start growing up. And you have no direction. You have no idea of what you're going to do for a living. How are you going to make it? You go out and you get a job. You try to do a couple of things here and there to make money. And at that point, when you're young, the only thing you're really worried about is do I have enough money so I can go out tonight? Do I have enough money so I can go do this or that? And during these time periods, when you're kind of learning who you are, even being brought up in a half Asian household like I was, you're constantly told that you need to go to school. Constantly told that. And a lot of people that have made their living as a millionaire or a billionaire, there's a lot of them that have not went to school. I'm not trying to discourage you out of school. Trust me, there's a lot of professions that pay a lot of money. And you got to remember that if we didn't have schooling, we probably wouldn't have tech right now, the tech sector, right? Like, you need schooling for the tech sector. You need to express that information from one generation to another generation. It has to be progressed, or else we won't progress as a species. But as far as trying to get stuff together where you can make that money without having much difficulty, we're like lost in the woods. We're lost in the woods when we're born. You can only cling to your parents, and they're growing up. They're trying to find their way. So you're kind of lost. You're lost in the moment and not in the progressive future. And I think that's a very important period that you deal with as you're growing up. And you watch and you learn from your mom and dad. Right? This is my grandmother over here. So as time goes on and you progress and you learn, you pick up small traits. You pick up traits from a lot of people. And those traits that you pick up, they start to form a personality. This personality starts to bust out from the input from your surroundings and from your peers. And as these personalities start to come out, you're either an alpha or beta. If you don't know what that means, you have an alpha male and you have a beta, which is sometimes designated as a follower. And a lot of personalities start to pop up. So I'm 18 years old, maybe a little bit older, maybe 20 in this picture. I think this was at Disneyland. And I start showing signs of the awakening, I call it, where you get to the point where you start to really pay attention to what's going on. You start paying attention to the news a little bit more. You start paying attention to talk radio, if that was a thing. And, you always got to have your girl, right? Or your boy, whichever it is. And you're always wondering, you're still wondering, like, what's the future hold? You're no longer that little kid, always stuck to your mom or dad. Now you're starting to be your own person. And that's totally different. And as you get older, you definitely want to drive something nice. And you're in your 20s. Your 20s go by pretty quick. This is very similar to a car that I drove. Same color, same rims, everything was the same. 69 Vet. I drove that thing for a very long time. 20 years old driving a 69 Vet. You want something, you work for it, and you obtain it. And the more that you work, the more shit you got. That's the way it usually works. You don't think about saving money. Come on. You're 20 years old. You're enjoying life. You're buying what you want. You're spending money like there's no tomorrow. You're not saving any of that money, right? Or you're in school and you don't have a job, or you're working part-time while going to school, and that's it. That's your life. And you always wonder in the back of your head, what the hell am I going to be when I get older? Some people have a direction. Some people don't. Some people have no fucking clue, and they don't find out in their entire lifetime what they were cut out to be. Because that's the way the world is. It's freedom of choice to do what you want. So as time goes on, find yourself in a query of thoughts and ideas and what ifs, and you're kind of like in a fog. You're kind of like you don't know which way to go. Something happens that's kind of exciting, and you cling to it, and you're like, oh, gives me some hope and perspective of a brighter future. Or, you want to travel down a field, but you don't know whether or not you're going to be good at it. There's always that doubt. There's always that what if. There's always that what if I fail. But I think a lot of entrepreneurs that get to that point where they're thinking to themselves, I just don't know if I've got what it takes. Some do, some don't. I mean, you have to roll with the punches. And the only advice I can give you is you can't give up. You have to think through the process. You have to think about scenarios that are going to happen before they happen, or which area is this going to go, or which fork in the road is this going to go down if I make this decision. I think that's one of the most important things you have to tell yourself, is that if I do this, where's it going to lead? Is it going to be something that is going to be productive or not productive? And as you get older with those challenges, you get to the point where if you do manage to open up a business, is that business going to lead you to the right direction also? So one thing that I can tell you is that we never know where we're going to land up. Okay? We never know if we're going to go down one road and it's going to lead us to something else. I'm going to give you a prime example. When I was 20 years old, I think it was 19 actually. When I was 19 years old, I was working at a place folding towels. It was called 3D Bed and Bath. Okay? And when I was at 3D Bed and Bath, a gentleman had come in there with his wife, and they were only looking to buy a sheet set. That's it. By the time I was done with them, not knowing that I really had a sales talent, just trying to help them and be as courteous as I possibly could, they ended up walking out with about $600 and something worth of stuff. They had a new comforter, they had new pillow shams, they had new sheets, they had all of this stuff. Well, the guy's loaded up with these packages, and I'm talking to them the whole time at the register, right? And he walks out the door, and he turns to his wife, and he's talking to his wife. And then he puts all the packages on the floor and says, "I'll be right back." Comes back in the store, and I'm like, oh, he must have forgot something. He comes up to me, he hands me his business card, and he said, "Kid, I don't know how the hell you were able to sell me all that stuff, but I think if anything ever happens and you need a job, come talk to me, because that was amazing." Well, of course, I'm a kid. I called him 2 days later and said, "What do you got for me?" He brings me over to an aluminum manufacturing place that they manufactured storefront aluminum. This was metal that you put glass in for buildings, right? So I went to work there, started on the order desk, learned everything I could, then moved on from there to storage room, where they had all the parts I had to check out in and out for people. Then from there I moved to purchasing, right? And then something strange happened to the company where the economy tanked and it was going downhill. So that job only lasted about 2 years. And I went to work for another aluminum company, which happened to be the third largest aluminum window company in America. And the strange thing is that you got to punch a time clock. You have to be there on time. This one was farther. Even though I had the vet, it was still kind of a chore to get there on time, being 30-something miles away. So on that progress, you start off as at this little guy who's just trying to find his way. Then all of a sudden you turn into this guy over here, right? Where I'm wearing a tie to work. I'm on the order desk, taking orders. You know, there's a certain type of mechanical ability that's required for what I was doing. And you start to develop the ability to understand a little bit more in your 20s. And it's like the awakening. It's like, oh, this is what businesses are. This is how it runs. And then I'm going to stop here because we're already at 20 minutes. On to the next one.